power of regret.
So in the summer of 2014, I decided to go backpack Europe. And about a month and a half into it, I was finally in Venice. And I almost wanted to avoid a city like Venice because I'd hear about, you get robbed and it's just really crowded and it smells like a sewer, and all those things are correct. It is a pretty remarkable city that is worth seeing once because there's none like it. And when backpacking, I know that one of the smart things you're supposed to do is you're supposed to keep a wallet that's really tight up against your skin, just so people won't steal your passport and your cards and things like that. Well, one night, I decided to sleep at the train station because I like to rough it for some reason. And for whatever reason, the first day of my trip, I must have been just because I'm groggy or tired, I decided to take that thing off. And in the morning, it was gone. And it led to a fiasco of me trying to recover my new passport, getting money wired to me so I can continue the other half of my trip. And it led to just like a lot of positive things, actually. Like it changed the course of my trip because my train tickets, I had to find new creative ways to get to other things, and I had a very fun adventure regardless, and I wouldn't change a thing. And now that's something that I've told myself for a very, very long time. Who in this room has ever made a mistake or has done something that caused dire consequences either to themselves or to other people? That should be everybody. And if you're not, you're a robot, you need to get out of here. But we've all had mistakes. And who amongst you think about that regret or that mistake, who now sees that mistake as a positive thing that has made them a better person? Most of you. So this is something that I've been pondering on a lot recently, and it's the concept of glamorizing failure or having a bias towards seeing failure in a light that's positive rather than of what it actually is, and which I think is negative. And I want to shed a light on how seeing failure as a positive thing is actually an illusion, and then how embracing regret and actually confronting that pain will actually lead to a much better future, not only for your life, but for the world in general. So most of us in this culture think that failure is a very positive thing, and it always leads to a positive outcome. And I want you to think, for those of you who think that your bad experience has made you a better person, isn't it funny that when we make these mistakes that we would have felt good regardless if the outcome was good or bad? This is sort of a bug in our brain that causes us to see whatever outcome in a positive light, because if it didn't do that, anytime we would make a mistake, it would be very difficult to live a life in just constant crippling guilt. You wouldn't be able to move on. So our brain manufactures justification in our mind in order to live with ourselves. Now, there's a problem with this. If we're biased towards seeing failure in a positive light, then it makes us very distant and inadequate to actually seeing the truth of a situation for what it is, for basically taking us away from true ownership of what that mistake actually is. So, for example, I could have been, my reaction to having my wallet stolen could have been something like, well, I know that it's inevitable at some point you're going to get your wallet stolen, especially at a city in Venice, so that probably has nothing to do with the fact that I took off my wallet, and if I was in Switzerland, I wouldn't even have to wear this thing anyway. That's a very bad approach to looking at things. You wouldn't, the thing about failure is it masks a lot, it masks a lot of what the actual problem is here. So in my case is I don't take responsibility for my personal belongings. And even though I did have a fun and great trip after losing my wallet, and I gained a lot of advice on having to scramble to the embassy, figuring out what you should do if you have your things stolen, and getting a new passport, and I've helped people who have been in that similar situation, in the end, I still think, really thinking back on, honestly, I would definitely prefer not my wallet to be stolen. Because if I only see this in this positive light, then I'm missing the point of what the problem is, and that's me not taking responsibility for my personal belongings. Which ironically, after I got back to the States, I had the worst year of losing my wallet than I ever had in my entire life. I lost my IDs 3 times in 1 year because it was just an issue. We have to really be honest with ourselves about the power of regret. And now regret is something that is probably one of the strongest emotions. It's probably second to fear on how impactful, and it's something that we try to avoid because it creates a lot of negative feedback. But I want to try a little exercise here that's worth doing, and it's very difficult, but it's worth doing. Is I want you to think about that moment. Really think about that moment that you made that mistake. The reason you see a lot of times this in a positive aspect is because a lot of times as time goes on, we distance ourselves from and forget the actual feeling and emotion that we had in the moment of that mistake. I can look back and say my trip was fantastic, but that trip was going to be fantastic no matter what because I was in the frame of mind to have a fantastic trip. Not because I think getting my wallet stolen leads to cool adventures. So I want you to think back to that mistake and really try to remember how you felt in that moment. Just for a brief moment, even if it's really, really difficult, and take into as closest to an objective view as you can of truly, was this a good thing or a bad thing to happen? I mean, I can tell someone like Maggie, she is someone that probably doesn't think to herself, you know what? I'm glad that I was an alcoholic because it made me a better person. I'm sure that she wishes that portion of her life never existed because consequences have actions. Our actions have consequences. We don't want to figure out after the fact that people are dying that it was a good or bad idea to invade a foreign country or something that we're seeing the consequences of now. And finally, I want to one saying that kind of bothers me that kind of compromises all this is we've all heard the saying that there's more lessons in failure than there in winning. Well, I think that's a crock of shit. That's the only way I can really put it. And the reason I think it's just a load of crap is because it doesn't have anything to do with reality. It just sounds profound. I mean, think about it. If that saying was actually true, why have you never said in a situation that you have come out victorious or succeeded, that you're like, you know what? Boy, today everything went according to plan, it was great, and I succeeded and came on top. But you know what would have been even better? Is if I totally failed and bombed and embarrassed myself today because I was missing out on on the insight that I never would have figured out. That doesn't make any sense. And with this, I think we should have a much better relationship with regret. It would make us a lot healthier mentally. And it would definitely make us better as a society, seeing how the power of our decisions and how technology is going. We need to be honest about ourselves about how failure is actually something that should be seen in a negative light, not a positive light. Thank you.